Hello, my name's John, and I'm a storyteller. I love stories. I hope you do as well. And I've got lots of wonderful stories to tell you. I've actually produced a website with all these stories on, www.biblestorycards.co.uk. You can see all my stories. I'm also a bit of a painter, and so I paint pictures to help me tell my stories. I hope you enjoy them. Hi everyone, it's John again with another one of my great Bible stories. I told you last time I told a story, I told you that sometimes we have stories in the Bible that are happy endings and other times not, because they tell stories of how people really are. And the sad fact is, just as the Bible says, all of us have sinned and come short of God's glory. Well, the story I've got to tell you today, you might be familiar with because you've probably had this experience with you. You know, the park bully or the playground bully. You know, he's bigger and stronger than everybody else, so he thinks he can get away with anything. And he can do what he likes, and you've got to keep in your place and do as he tells you. Well, this is exactly what happened. As I say, human beings don't change very much, and this happened hundreds of years ago. In fact, probably 2,000 years ago in the Old Testament. And there's a story of a horrible king. His name was Ahab. He was a bad lot, and he'd married a bad lot. A woman called Jezebel, and she led him astray into even worse ways. Anyway, he was on his palace walls one day, and he was thinking that the palace garden was quite small, but the garden next door was organised by this man called Naboth. And Naboth's garden was beautiful. It was picturesque and had things growing in it, and it was just wonderful. And Ahab thought, if I had that garden connected to mine, I could grow all the good things that he's growing. Yeah, I'll call him in. So he called this man in, and he said, Naboth, I've got something to ask you. Yes, O king. Well, I've looked down over my palace wall, and I see that your garden is very beautiful. And I would like to buy your garden from you, and I'll give you a very good price for it if you let me have your garden. And then I can double the size of mine. And Naboth knew of a law that said that you must never ever give your land to anyone else. You must never sell it to anyone else. It's your inheritance, organized by God in the first place, and so you must keep it. So Naboth said, I can't give it to you. I can't sell it to you, king, because God has forbidden it. Oh, never mind that. I'll double the price if you give me your garden. No, I'm sorry, it's not for sale at any price. So this Naboth, because he wanted to obey God, refused the king's offer. Well, nobody ever did that to the king, and he wasn't going to stand for it. But he went into a sulk. You know, sometimes that happens, and just because you can't get your own way, you go into a strop. Well, that's what he did. And he wouldn't eat, and he wouldn't get up, and he just lay there with his head facing the wall in his bedroom, and he was all miserable and in a strop. And his wife came in, And she said, "What's the matter with you? Are you ill or something?" "No," he said, "I'm not ill. It's that Naboth fellow. He's refused to sell me his garden. And now I can't have his garden to go on to mine. And I'm fed up with it, and I'm annoyed about it, and I'm disappointed. And I don't want to eat anything, and I don't want to get up." And his wife took him by the shoulders and shook him and said, "You're the king, man. You can do what you like in your kingdom. Leave it to me. I'll make sure that before the sun sets tonight, you will have that garden." "Well, how are you going to do that?" "Never you mind," she said. I'll do it. I'll get the garden for you." So this is what she did. She called her soldiers and she gave them this instruction, and she said, "I want you to go and I want you to find some rough blokes, some thugs, and I want you to get them to bring Naboth in, and I want you to get them to come in as well. And as soon as Naboth comes in, they're to start accusing him of disloyalty to the king and of being a traitor, treason. And so you to say these things against him, and the people that are standing by will recognize what an evil man this Naboth is." See, it was all a trick, really. Anyway, she had her soldiers standing by, ready, that as soon as Naboth was accused in this way, that they would execute him. They would pronounce him guilty, and they would execute him. So that's what they did. Stoned him, killed him on sight. And then Jezebel went in to see Ahab, her husband, who was still in a strop, and she said, "There you go. The garden of Naboth is yours. I've managed to get him to give it to you. You won't even need to buy it." And Ahab leapt for joy and ran as soon as he could to take possession of Naboth's garden and to look at it firsthand. And he was standing there in the plot, in the garden, when a figure appeared. He hated this figure because it was none other than Elijah. And he was God's prophet. And he said to Ahab as he was there in the garden, "You wicked man, you stole that garden, this garden, from your neighbor. You committed the act of murder against him." Well, I suppose Ahab could have said, "Well, it wasn't me, it was Jezebel, it was my wife." But it was he that was responsible. And because of that, God pronounced a sentence on Ahab. And you've got to read the rest of the story to see how it was carried out. You could say it was a terrible accident. But I think as you read the story, you and I know differently. Because Ahab there was in battle with his troops. And the enemy were retreating. And most of them had used most of their weapons anyway, most of their arrows. But one man, just one, we don't not even know who it was. One man had one arrow left. And he pulled it out of the quiver on his back. And he put it in his bow and thought, well, I'll fire this into the air, and well, if it hits somebody, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't matter. It's the last one. At that point, Ahab was standing there and had the visor on his helmet up. Guess where that arrow went? Over the top of the others, right down to where he stood, and hit him right there where the visor was lifted. And he died. Do you think that was God's judgment? I do. Well, it just shows you that God refuses the kind of things that Ahab did, and God is angry with that. And God will punish people for things like that, one way or another. You see, he was there as the king because he ought to have been strong and helping the weak. So if you're stronger than somebody else, if you're bigger than somebody else, it's not so you can get your own way, it's so that you can help them. That's what God intends. Make sure that's true of you.